honest folks in the house today? Anyone brave enough to raise your hand if you've ever made a rolling stop, a Hollywood stop? Do we know what that is? So the last time that I was pulled over by a police officer, hypothetically, if I were ever pulled over by a police officer, it would probably be for something like a rolling stop or a Hollywood stop, meaning you're coming to the stop sign and you're slowing down and you're looking both ways, but you fail to stop so completely that the police officer sees the front of your car go down and up again. You follow me? I'm told that when you stop at a stop sign, the car goes down and then comes up again. Anyone honest enough to admit that sometimes we come up to stop signs and the car doesn't exactly go all the way down and up again? Right? But we come to the stop sign and we slow down, we look both ways, and we go through maybe without stopping. There's the letter of the law, and there's the spirit of the law. What's the difference? The letter of the law is, thou shalt stop at every stop sign. Follow me? The law says you have to stop, and so what? You have to stop. That's the letter of the law. Have you thought recently about why we have stop signs? Have you thought about why we have stop signs? Stop sign simply is an indication that we're coming to an intersection where two roads come together, right? And so in order to safely get through there, imagine if there were no signs at all there, people would be racing through and not looking, though. In order for there to be safety, we put a stop sign there for safety. I often joke that I come from the cornfields of Ohio to the corn tortillas of Texas, right? Can you imagine for a moment what it's like to be in the middle of the cornfields of Ohio? You can see for miles out there. And so when you're coming to an intersection, the folks in Ohio, I understand some of them, right? What happens? They're slowing down when they come to the intersections, but they're not necessarily stopping. They're not following the letter of the law, but they're following the spirit of the law, and no one gets hurt. Which did Jesus focus on? Did Jesus focus on the letter of the law and following laws just because? Or did he focus on the spirit of the law? What are you guessing? He focused on the spirit of the law. Maybe that's why some things that we're seeing today in current events seem so cruel. We're hearing of a travel ban against certain people from certain countries. We're hearing of the deportation of certain people, right? What makes things like that seem so cruel is the spirit of that law, right? How it is that those laws are pushing people away rather than recognizing them as our brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, I suspect that we need to think really hard about this, the difference between the letter and the spirit of the law. Let's use a Valentine's Day example. Are you ready? A Valentine's Day example of the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. There once was a married couple. And the resemblance to any real married couple is accidental. I'm not talking about anyone here. But there was a married couple where he worked 60 to 80 hours every week. He wasn't home a lot. But he shared his paycheck with his wife. Made sure that she and the kids had everything they needed. There was no sorts of abuse in the house. He was following the letter of the law when it comes to marriage. But to say that he loved her, to say that there was any emotion behind it, isn't that sometimes how it is with following the letter of the law? We do things because we feel we have to. How interesting that here this man was, working 68 hours a week. His wife had become more like a maid than a wife. You know what I mean? When that love is no longer there. more like the nanny for his kids whom he never saw anymore. And yes, his wife had everything that she could maybe want, a nice car, nice clothing, trips to the salon, but was that really what she got married for? No. She got married for love. So when he received the divorce papers, he thought to himself, I followed the letter of the law. I've done what I needed, what I should have done, right? Wrong. He followed the letter of the law. What about the spirit of the law? In Jesus' day, the Pharisees were great about following the letter of the law. I'm doing this because I have to do this. But their hearts were far from God. Follow me? That's how it was with the Pharisees. They were willing to follow the letter of the law. I'll do it because I have to do it. But I'll just do it for that reason. Do anyone remember Calvin and Hobbes? Do you remember Calvin and Hobbes, the comic strip? There's one Calvin and Hobbes comic strip where Calvin is coming into the house looking like he just played in mud. And Mom says, you are filthy! Into the tub with you! Follow me? You're filthy! Into the tub with you! And in the next box, we see Calvin sitting inside the tub saying, I'm a master at following the letter of the law. No water was running. Follow me? Mom said, you're filthy. Into the tub with you. He was in the tub. He was following the letter of the law because he had to. The spirit of the law was that you turn on the water and you get clean again. He wasn't following the spirit of the law. He was following the letter of the law. And in the next box, Mom is yelling up the stairs saying, I don't hear the water running. And Calvin says, rats. How are you when it comes to following the letter of the law and or the spirit of the law? The Pharisees were masters at getting in the bathtub and following the letter of the law. Okay, I'm doing what I have to do. But they weren't any more clean. Follow me? They weren't any more clean. You? Where's your heart? And what are you following? The letter of the law or the spirit of the law? Jesus uses the example today. In today's gospel, he says, be careful when you point another finger at someone else, because what happens when you point one finger at someone else? There are 3 fingers pointing back at you. We've said that before, right? And so he tells the Pharisees, you Pharisees who think you're so good at following the law, you who are willing to get into the bathtub and not turn on the water, be careful, because when you point to others and say, well, at least I'm not like him, he's a murderer. What does Jesus say? Jesus says, be careful, because when you point one finger at someone else, there are 3 pointing back at you. I'll tell you something. Every time you get angry at someone, that's like murder. So don't go judging other people when you get angry yourself. Or when you point at another person and say, that person is an adulterer. Jesus says, don't go judging that other person. If you ever looked lustfully at another person, translation in plain English, if you ever looked at another person and said, then don't go judging another person. Right? Or if you're talking about people, pointing your finger at judging other people who are making false oaths, look at them and what they say and do. Okay. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Don't repeat after me, but raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Jesus says, what you just did was you just swore as well. Follow me? So don't go pointing a finger at other people and judging others, because there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. Or today's first reading puts it another way. It says, are you being more like water in this world, or are you being fire? What is water? Water is life-giving and cleansing. Is that how you are with other people, giving them life? Or are you burning bridges. Last week we talked about how we all receive the light of Christ. What are you doing with that light of Christ? Are you using it to burn bridges? Are you using it to push other people away? Are you water or fire? Today's first reading asks. Some of you may know that I mentor a 7th grader every week for 30 minutes. I'm sitting down and getting my weekly dose of 7th grade conversation. And this week my 7th grade mentee is reading a book called Eon. It's like 600 pages long. It's a long book, but I decided to read it too. Speed read it. I'm up to chapter 11. Do you know the story of Eon? I hope it turns into a movie one day. Eon, who we find out in chapter 1 is really a girl. Iona, in order to be a dragon-eye master, to be the master of a dragon, she can't be a girl because we didn't let girls do these things. So she dressed as a boy and she was going to play the part of a boy so that she could be a dragon master, and she became a dragon master. Now she's Lord Eon, and we all think she's a boy. But we know what's happening, right? She's really a girl. With the secret that one day they might find out that I'm really a girl. And then what will happen? Because they'll judge me. And they'll point the finger at me and they'll condemn me. Chapter 11 I'm up to. Iona, Lord Eon. Lord Eon finds himself in a woman's chamber, looking at herself in the mirror and seeing in front of her the makeup and the jewelry and all those things that she's not allowed to do because even though she's a 16-year-old girl, she's got to play the part of a boy. You know where this story's going, right? As she looks in the mirror. She looks in the mirror and she says, I wonder what it would be like to wear those bracelets. And so she puts on the bracelets. And she says, I wonder what it would be like to wear those earrings. Her ears aren't pierced, but she holds them up to her ears and looks in the mirror. And at that very moment, Lady Dila walks into the room. Follow me? Lord Eon, a boy, we thought, is now wearing bracelets and holding earrings up to his ear, looking at himself, herself, in the mirror. How does Lady Dila respond? Does Lady Dila point the finger and judge him and condemn him and push him away? Her. Or does Lady Dila find herself being more accepting? And what does Lady Dila say? Lady Dila says, Lord Eon. Lady Dila says, Lord Eon, I don't wear men's clothing, but I'm a woman in here. Lady Dila is actually not a lady, but is a man who's dressed like a lady. So instead of judging others, isn't it true that we as human beings like to judge others? We probably have names for people who do some of these things. Follow me? We could label them and condemn them, but instead of this story, we find this beautiful story of one who, instead of pushing someone away, instead of burning bridges and being fire, instead she is water. Brothers and sisters, are you willing to join me in being water in this world? There's enough fire. There are enough people burning bridges, burning others. It's time for us to be the healing water that we're called to be. Following not so much the letter of the law, because as St. Paul says in his second letter to the Corinthians, it's the letter of the law that leads to death. The spirit of the law leads to life. This week, instead of pointing at others, judging others, condemning others, burning bridges, may we all be the water that we're called to do.